want to talk about one more thing before we get into playing songs together, and that's how we read music on the guitar. In the lead guitar method, we do it a little bit differently than you might have done in some other methods, and the biggest difference is I like to avoid using the standard mnemonic devices at the beginning. Every good boy does fine to memorize the lines on the staff, and FACE to memorize the spaces on the staff, because I feel like those mnemonic devices obfuscate the true meaning of the staff, how it works, how the notes relate to one another. And I first want you to focus only on how to identify a note, the pitch, the rhythm, where it is on the staff, high or low. And then, right before we play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, we'll get into really talking about how the notes relate to one another on the staff, something called stepwise motion, the musical alphabet and how that works. But first, just the notes and the elements of the notes. So every note has two very basic elements. It has a note head and a stem. Now the note head helps us determine the pitch and the rhythm, and the stem helps us determine just the rhythm, and I'll explain exactly how it does that. A half note has an empty note head. Also, a note can have a filled-in note head like a quarter note. A quarter note happens to be faster than a half note. It's twice as fast as a half note. So if I were to identify the difference between these two notes, I would clap them like this. I would clap 1, 2 for a half note, and I would clap 1, 2 for a quarter note. So two quarter notes take place in the time of one half note. Or again, a quarter note is twice as fast as a half note. We're subdividing a half note when we play a quarter note. Lots of ways you can think about it, and as you can see, it's very related to things you would have already been learning in math. Here's an eighth note, or in fact, here are two eighth notes. And eighth notes, especially in the beginning of the lead guitar method book, are always going to be seen in groups of two. And that's very helpful because they'll feel like they're in groups of two. Eighth notes go twice as fast as a quarter note. You can fit two eighth notes inside one quarter note. So if I were to clap a series of half notes and quarter notes, I would do it like this. I would clap half note, 1, 2, and I would clap quarter notes as 1, 2, and eighth notes would be 1 and 2 and exactly twice as fast. And that's how these rhythms relate to one another. These are the only three rhythms that we have in the first many songs in the lead guitar method book. There are also 16th notes and 32nd notes and dotted quarter notes and dotted half notes, but I don't want you to think about any of that until it actually occurs in the pieces that we use. So now that we've seen all of those, I want to introduce something else to you, and that is just a staff by itself. It has 5 lines and 4 spaces. Here's something that is really important to keep in mind because we're guitar players. It can be very confusing. These lines do not represent the strings on the guitar in any way. These are the same 5 lines and 4 spaces we use to read music on every instrument in Western music, and that's important too. A lot of students get confused about that. So like I was saying, a note can appear either as on a line or in a space. Let me show you. So here is a B note, and this B note is on a line. And here also you see that we have the clef. This is a treble clef. It's also sometimes called a G clef because of this little circle in the treble clef circles what's called the G line. That's not important to remember right now. The thing I most want you to remember is that this is a B note, and there's a lot of things that you can do to identify that. First, consider what line is it on. You could think about whether it's on the middle line or the top line or the bottom line. This is obviously on the middle line. You could also call it the third line from the bottom or the third line from the top. But what I find beautiful about this is it's the very first note you learn how to play. We've already played it a lot as an open string when we walk on the B string. And it's in the very center of the staff, so right now it's the center of your note reading universe. It is the note that you most know how to recognize and the note that you most need to know how to recognize whenever you're reading music, a B note. The other note I most want you to be able to recognize is a D note. D note is similar, of course. It's also on a line. It's not on the middle line like the B note was. It's on the second line from the top or the fourth line from the bottom. I like to think of it as the second line from the top. Just as an example, this is not a note that we're going to use right now. I just wanted to show you what a note looks like when it's in a space. right? It's between the two lines. This happens to be a C note, and it's in a space, and that's what a space note looks like. But as we begin in 1, 2, Buckle My Shoe, we're only dealing with the B note and the D note, and it'll be easy for you to recognize as we read together and play the song.